Hey everyone, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I am not a big fan of Trump, but I cannot understand the criticisms he has received from stating that the violence in Charlottesville has perpetrators on both sides. Immediately after saying this, CNN, MSNBC, and the social media echo chamber began screaming about this. People in the mainstream media began tweeting pictures of soldiers storming Normandy and saying things along the lines that this is a picture of anti-fascists disrupting a large gathering of white supremacists. Although technically true, it has nothing to do with the current state of affairs we find ourselves in. This is equating Antifa to soldiers in World War II fighting against a disgusting government that murdered millions. I'm sorry, but Antifa has nothing to do with these people. They're violent thugs that chuck M80s into crowds, throw bike locks at people, and sucker punch people because they're weak little children that have nothing to offer intellectually. They claim to hate capitalism and they claim to be pro-communism, yet they know nothing about either, all the while pointing the finger at everyone who won't drink their Kool-Aid and claiming that we're all racist Nazi sympathizers with some of the most pitiful arguments I've ever heard. I also couldn't believe that the mainstream media actually has been painting only the so-called alt-right with a violent brushstroke. For some of them, that would be accurate, and I have no argument, but to ignore that those on the left aren't equally culpable in the violence is to live in a fantasy world. Did James Hodgkinson not just kill a House Republican at a baseball game in June purely for political reasons? Did he not send several others to the hospital with gunshot wounds for political reasons? Hodgkinson was not an alt-right nut job. He was a fervent Bernie Sanders supporter, which, by the way, it was cringeworthy to watch MSNBC during that time. It was all too obvious that they were upset that this wasn't a right-winger killing leftists. If that had been the case, they would still be covering it to this day. But since the murder of a Republican doesn't fit their preferred narrative, it was quickly shuffled off their news cycle. Look, all in all, Trump says a lot of insane things, but to me, this wasn't one of them. I regard Hodgkinson shooting Republicans and James Fields ramming his car into people as the same type of twisted nonsense, and it actually perfectly illustrates the difference between ultra-leftist Antifa types and true fascists. The difference being nothing. These are both groups of people who have lost every intellectual battle and can now only resort to violence. I've said it before, those who use violence, unless it's in direct self-defense, are those who are intellectually bankrupt. They have lost in the marketplace of ideas, and so they act like small children and lash out with violence. My final point is this: the hysteria surrounding neo-Nazis and white nationalists has grown to absurd levels. Are members of Nazi groups out of their minds? Of course. But when is the last time you've met a sincere Nazi sympathizer? What's the percentage of people who truly consider themselves a Nazi? I don't have an exact number, but I am sure it begins with a 0, then a decimal point, and then a few more zeros before you might hit a non-zero number. The sky isn't falling, Nazism and racism is not on the rise, and there is no shortage of people who will become professionally outraged if you say the wrong thing. Thanks, and until next time.